I never thought torpedoes would swim around like a school of fish in my submarine game. But it happens, and it shows just how valuable grabbing a few friends and playtesting is for your game, because it unearths so many bugs you would have never realized until release. In this video, I'll go over how I implemented torpedoes into my submarine game and what exactly went wrong. Make sure to watch the previous devlog if you haven't to catch up on the progress I made there, and to like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe so you can keep up to date with all of the submarine warfare development. So let's talk about implementing the torpedo. So the first thing you have to do is get it to spawn, and I'll accomplish that by putting attachments where each torpedo tube should be on the sub itself, and then each torpedo will spawn on an available tube. Once it spawns in, we need a way to propel it. I'm using vector forces for that, and I have a video on that if you're interested in the topic. And that will just make it go forward, straight forward, and then a script inside of the torpedo will detect when it hits a part using a ray cast. And then once the ray hits, it'll explode. If it hits a submarine, it'll also cause a sub to take damage. Now, this is a very basic torpedo implementation. In the future, I'll add support for the player to be able to control their torpedoes via like WASD, and they'll have camera overview of it. And torpedoes may or may not have sonar as well, so you can control exactly where it goes and where it hits. But I just want to make sure the teams and the sub damage are working, so that's where the basic implementation is. So up until this point, when I've spawned the subs, they've just kind of spawned in and done nothing. But now we need a way for the torpedoes to hit an enemy. So right now you can see me implementing the team and bunker system for submarine warfare, which will be very useful later when we implement more features. So the whole idea is there's like two teams, red and blue, and they each have their own submarine bunker where they can spawn subs, and the subs can attack each other. And they attack each other with torpedoes. So obviously I need to implement the teams before I implement the torpedoes, so the damage can get registered and you can get kills between different groups of players. And I used a knit service called match service to handle all of this logic, and just a basic class for each bunker. This will be expanded on in the future, but it was adequate for what I wanted in this video. So one funny thing that happened while testing is that each torpedo has a hinge constraint that acts as a propeller and animates the propeller, but this adds torque to it. So you can see in this little clip, the torpedoes are spinning a ton, and it's kind of funny. So I did a lot of work off camera, and I fixed that issue that you saw in the previous clip, and here's the final state of the Torpedo class. It's just a basic object-oriented class, has a bunch of references to our sub and our instance, and every frame it raycasts, and it'll detect a sub. If the result hits, and it'll explode, and it'll destroy itself. For some reason, this line of code right here has a problem because the primary part does not exist in some scenarios. That's what caused the issues that you saw at the beginning of the video. But I haven't quite figured it out yet. It's probably very simple, and I'm just kind of stupid, but that's how programming usually is. So let's go into Roblox, and let me just show you real quick how I have the model set up. So let's bring out the Victoria. This is the go-to sub for testing. You can see up front, these are all of the spawn points for the torpedoes, and they're roughly aligned to each torpedo tube, and they're really nice because they allow me to just plop them down visually and then just reference their position. And usually most people on Roblox would use parts for this, but I found it a lot easier to use attachments, and that's a pretty cool workflow that I actually really enjoy. So let's analyze the gameplay. At first, everything seemed to be going well, and then I found a pretty bad bug. When you shoot a torpedo, it would usually blow up your sub if you're going decently fast, which that's not very good. So I went into VS Code and tried to make a quick hotfix. I didn't really know what the issue was, and I didn't care to find out. It was kind of late, so I just made the range torpedoes a little longer so you had more speed to spare when you shot. It's a very nasty fix, but it did the job. But let me tell you, it was really cool to see my friend drop out and drop down in the submarine right next to me as we formed up and processed towards the enemy lines. And he tried to do a descent strat, but later we realized when you hit the floor of the playing field, you are stuck. I think it probably has to do with the buoyancy physics, since the sub model is simulated by a cylinder. So I'll probably change it to a cube and see if that fixes it. But for some reason, when you hit the ground, you are stuck. And by the way, all the people playing in this video are the council role in my Discord server. If you want to hop on and maybe chat with them, see what they thought of the experience, you can do that. And now comes the most epic part of the video, the duel between me, B-Ricey, and my friend Derpy Unicorn, also known as Dark Hawkeyes. So this could have been really cool and really epic, but the controls, like the movement controls on the sub, are horrible. And I knew they're pretty bad, but I didn't fully realize it until we tried to have a fight, because they're very sluggish, but when you held down either like W or S or A and D, you gain so much momentum that you just flung past your intended direction. That's because I'm using a vector force instead of an angular velocity, so it just keeps on adding torque and torque and torque until you can't really control it. And he got so pissed off, he left the game. So that left me turning around to go free my friend from the prison that the seafloor was shown to be. My duty now completed, I went to check the server console, and a very red screen greeted me. So these were all of the errors that happened. I think it was one error in the render step of the or heartbeat, I should say, of the torpedo that caused the entire issue, and those errors mounted over time, causing enough stress to the server to completely break the game, because my friend, now respawned, started shooting tons and tons of torpedoes, and the server just could not handle it. And once he touched down, he started firing tons of torpedoes. On my screen, and I think on the server, we couldn't see it, but I switched to his perspective, and this is what he saw. You can see a column of torpedoes. Some of them are spinning. Even though I thought I fixed that issue with the hinge constraints, apparently when you overthrottle the server, it just forgets about it. So I think I'm going to need a more permanent solution, like instead of using hinges for the propellers, I use particle emitters or something like that. That should work. But this continued on for a couple of minutes. So that's about it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this devlog, and stay tuned for the next one where, I don't know, we'll be adding more features. I know that. And we'll definitely be fixing these bugs. So like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to stay updated on submarine warfare, and comment on the video any suggestions or questions you have about the game. But other than that, I hope you have a nice day, and goodbye.